Good evening. Welcome to the Clayton Tribune series of debates continuing for the general election this coming November. We're going to start off tonight with Board of Education Post 5 between the incumbent David Smith and the challenger Molly Lima. We'll begin just traditional format as always. We'll start with opening statements. They've already flipped a coin to find out who goes first. Molly Lima.
Hi there. I just want to say thank you so much to each and every one of you for coming out tonight. I know it's a really busy night in our community, so thank you. Thank you so much for all of the support that I've received throughout this entire process. It's truly just an honor and very humbling to be here. I also want to apologize in advance. The Board of Education debate and the primary school and elementary school open house was at the same time tonight. So I'm going to skirt out of here as quickly as I can after the debate tonight to try to get over there to see my husband and daughters over there. But I am always available to set up an appointment, meeting, talk with you, send me Facebook message, smoke signals, one way or the other. I would love to sit down and have the opportunity to talk with any of you and be accessible to you. So thank you again for, all of the support. And I look forward to serving you in this community.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Good evening. I just want to start out by saying thank you for the support that the school system has received from the community over the years. That's what makes our school systems great. It's not any one individual. It's the community that makes it great. Without that support, we can't do anything. I think a lot of you know me. My wife and I moved here in 1982. We've been residents since then. Our children went through the school systems. We think they got a good education there. And I just ask for your continued support for the Board of Education and the schools that we have here in the county. You, the citizens, make our schools. Thank you.
This first question is for both of you. What qualifies you for a position on the Board of Education?
Mr. Smith.
Well, I think it's the interest that I have in the school system. I have a passion for public education because I think it's what makes our country great. Without that public education, we can't be a great democracy. We can't provide the jobs or the skills for the jobs that we need without an educated group of people coming along every year. And I think you have to really love public education and want to make sure that it succeeds. Thank you.
Ms. Lima.
What qualifies me for the Board of Education seat is that I am very interested, obviously, in what goes on in those schools. We have two young daughters, one's 6 and one's 3, so we've got many years ahead of us in the school system. So I've got a very vested interest in what goes on in that school system. Not to mention the friends that I have that work there and the community, of course, that I would work for. It's just very important to me, and I'm passionate about it. And so my qualifications are the fact that I am a public servant at heart, and that's really what I have at the core of me, is the desire to see what I can do to serve our public, our community, our kids, our schools, and to see what I can do to make them as good as I possibly can and keep them going well.
This is a question for both of you, and wow, this is a great speaker system this time compared to last time when I had to be very verbal. This is for both of you. What is your specific top priority for the Board of Education, and how will you accomplish it?
Ms. Lima.
First and foremost, that's an easy one, it's transparency. I got into this because I wanted to know what's going on in that school system because of my kids, and of course I pay taxes. I'm a property owner. I want to know what my taxes are going to. And I felt like I wasn't necessarily as involved as I needed to be because I didn't know what was going on, and I thought, okay, the best way to get involved, to know what's going on, is to jump right in. So that's what I want to bring to the community, and how I would accomplish that is having sit-down meetings with anyone and everyone, being accessible, going to meetings throughout our community, going and having sit-downs, meet and greets, and really talking to anyone and everyone that wants to know why decisions are made, what decisions are coming up. I think that, I know that as a parent, a lot of times we are faced with the choice at the end of the night of, are we going to have dinner with our families or go to a Board of Education meeting? And it's really imperative that we know what's going on in that meeting if we're going to make that sacrifice with our family to make it to that meeting. So that's my goal, is to bring that transparency to the community.
Mr. Smith.
Two of my main priorities. One is the AP program that we have at the school where the students can take classes that will qualify for college credit. They can also do a joint enrollment with Young Harris College and Piedmont College. And our newest project is the vocational. It's called CATE now, but we're building a new CATE wing there, which will provide the students with the opportunities who want to go to technical school to start those classes early. We're going to partner with North Georgia Tech so that some of those classes will carry on as credit for them. And as far as the transparency, our Board of Education meetings are open to everyone. I'm out in the community all the time. I see people all the time, and I get stopped and people ask me questions, and I'm more than willing to answer those questions. Our agenda is published in the paper and on the radio prior to all meetings, and it's posted at the Board of Education office. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Smith, this question's for you. In the general primary election debate, both Republican candidates discussed the education special purpose local option sales tax. The most recent eSplost provided $19 million for the Raven County schools. What is the purpose of eSplost, and what is your view on the continued use of this tax?
Well, the eSplost, every time it's voted on, you have to be very specific in what projects and what you're going to use that money for. So the public is aware of that in voting on the eSplost every time. There's a resolution passed, and on the ballot, it tells you what those funds are going to be used for. I think the main project this time is for the vocational and the renovation of the cafeteria. That school's over 30 years old. We have the middle school and high school there, and it's very difficult to try to get all of those kids at lunch at a reasonable time. So we wanted to expand that so that that was more workable for the kids and the faculty and staff there. And also the eSplost, we can now use funds for other things other than just buildings. So we can use it to alleviate some of the property taxes. It spreads those taxes out. We can use those for textbooks, computers, anything but salaries now.
This is a question for Ms. Lima. In the April debate, when discussing the eSplost, you said, just hearing the word tax is like nails on a chalkboard. However, if it's something that's justifiable, then yay, we take it to the voters. Has your time on the campaign trail strengthened or weakened your stance, and why?
It's definitely strengthened that stance. In meeting with the families that have students that are going into these vocational studies and using that ag building, I know just how important it is to them to be in that building. In this community in particular, we're in Raven County where agriculture and vocational work is of huge importance. So I stand by that, if it's something that we really do need, then we need to know why, obviously, but yeah, we need to support it if it's a definite need. And like I said in the other debate about the cafeteria, we can't have kids eating lunch at 10:30, I believe it was, in the morning and expecting them to make it all the way through the rest of their day without needing something else to pick them up. So again, I stand by that very much, and it's just strengthened that. And I think it needs to be used appropriately, obviously, and it needs to be justified and explained to the voters. And yeah.
This is a question for both of you. What do you see as a top priority for that funding? Mr. Smith?
Ms. Lima.
Oh, sorry.
The eSplost funding, or just funding in
What do you
general?
see as the top priority for the eSplost funding?
Well, right now, I think that, as I said, the buildings and building those are the top priority. I don't know. I haven't given it much thought, honestly, about how I feel about that eSplost money being used towards textbooks and everything else under the sun, other than salaries now, that rule has been broadened. One thing about Splost that's appealing is that everyone that comes into our community pays it. It's not just the property owners. So, again, it's just kind of weighing those checks and balances on whether it's something that the community wants, and that's why it's so important for us to have wide open ears about what the community wants. And my experience in the last primary election is that we don't want any more SPLOST funding, that people are fed up with it on one side, and then on the other side, some people go, well, but we do have that really great influx during leaf season of people coming into our county. So it's just having those open ears and listening to what you guys want, because it's not about us.
Mr. Smith.
Well, specifically, the SPLOST, you have to do what you said you were going to do in the resolution and on the ballot. You can't change during the course of the collection of that and do other things. You have to use that money specifically for that. The state comes in and audits you and makes sure that you use that money for the things that you said you were going to use it for. And I like it because it spreads the burden out on non-property owners that don't own real property in the county. There have been some estimates that over 50% of that SPLOST money comes from tourists, people who are traveling through. So I think it's a great investment when you invest $1 and get $1 in return. So as far as what the priorities are, it was what was on the ballot and in the resolution, and that's what we've got to use it for. We can't deviate from that. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, this question is for you. You have been a member of the local Board of Education for 15 years. How has Rabun's educational needs changed during that time, and are the county's educational needs now being met?
Well, I guess I'm prejudiced. I feel like our needs are being met. I think we have changed the culture in the community in that we think or believe that our children are important and that we, need to provide them with the opportunities. We no longer compete with just people within the county, even within the state. We are in a global economy, and we've got to provide them with the skills that are necessary so they can compete. One thing that they have just done was a virtual job shadowing where they will have companies do the kids can do virtual job shadowing with companies all around the state and the country. Holder Construction Company came in and they did a presentation at our fine arts facility where they talked about construction. As we know, during the recession, construction waned, but it's coming back, and they're the people who built the dome in Atlanta, and they came in and did a presentation about all the different types of construction jobs. Thank you.
This is a question for Ms. Lima. On the campaign trail, you have positioned yourself as being a parent who visits the school campus daily. As a parent active in the PTO, do you believe Rabun County schools are meeting the county's educational needs? Why or why not?
I'm the PTO president at the primary school, and I'm on the campuses every single day picking up my daughter, of course, going in, talking to teachers and the other parents. That's a huge part of my life. I'm a Girl Scout leader, so I'm talking to parents there too all the time. I think that we have a great school system. We really do, and we are meeting a lot of the needs. Of course, there's always the opportunity to look about what we can do better, and sometimes complacency leads to not realizing that you necessarily have a need, but having a new set of opinions, fresh eyes, you see, oh, well, that is great, but what about if we try something this way? So you have an outside perspective a lot of times that only can lead to something better. And of course, on the Board of Education right now, I would be the only one with young kids that are currently in the school system, at the primary level. And I think it's very important to have a diverse Board of Education. It's not just one person, it's a board for a reason, and that's to have multiple people's opinions.
Okay. Candidates, this question is for both of you. Governor Nathan Deal is seeking from Georgia voters the ability to take over failing school districts to help improve their performance. What is your view on opportunity school districts, and why should it matter to Rabun County voters?
Ms. Lima.
Opportunity School District is a horrible idea, quite frankly. I see that there's the point of, okay, well, these inner city schools, they're failing. We all need to do what we can do to pick them up, but there's nothing that sounds more socialist to me than everyone across the board chip in and take care of one little thing. So I hate the idea. I am, again, a Republican, so just like with the tax sounding like nails on a chalkboard to me. Big government also sounds that way to me, and that's exactly what that is. There's no need for the state to say, okay, let's take all of the local control out of this and give it to one person in the state and see what we can do and do better. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. To take local control away is not the direction we need to be going at all.
Mr. Smith.
We just passed a resolution opposing the Opportunity School District. We don't think that so much power should be vested in one person. It just makes no sense. I think there are other means by which they can improve those school systems at a local level. The governor has the authority to go in and remove school board members when they are not functioning properly, and then have an election and have someone else elected that is a member of that community, instead of having a czar, is the way I look at it, running the school systems. And the local money is still going there, but there's no accountability on that level. So we opposed it, and we passed a resolution at the last board meeting stating our opposition to the Opportunity School District.
This is a question for both of you. What is your view on standardized testing accountability for students and teachers?
Mr. Smith.
Well, about 15 years ago, the state came down and said, you're going to be accountable to us. And they instituted all these tests. They did the graduation test. They've done the end of course test. And they've gone overboard, in my opinion. There should be probably one standardized test. And when I went through school, they did the ITBS, the Iowa Basic Skills Test. I think that would give you a snapshot and tell you where your students are. We've taken so much time in testing that the teachers don't have time to teach anymore. And the state has started to back off some, but we get mandates from the state, and they say, you will do these things. And in order to obtain that funding, we have to do those things. I'm opposed to all the standardized testing. I think we should probably have one standardized test. That would tell us what we need to know about how the students are, achieving the goals that we want them to achieve. Thank you.
Ms. Lima.
I think that I recognize just about every one of you from the previous debates in the room, so you all know where I stand on this. I absolutely hate standardized testing. I think that it takes all the control away from the teachers to teach what they need to be teaching and to specific students in the ways that they need to be teaching it. Common Core, again, is wrapped up in there with that. There's no reason that the government should be telling our teachers how to teach. Our teachers should be able to teach because that's what their passion is for, that's what they went to school for, and if they're not doing their job, then we should be able to address that on a teacher-to-teacher basis instead of having other issues, union protection and stuff like that. But standardized testing is out of control, and our kids getting sick and crying and having to take anti-anxiety medications. And if that's not ludicrous, I just don't know what is.
Okay, this question is for both candidates. Salaries. The national narrative is that educators are not compensated well enough for what they do. But here in Rabun County, 9 of the top 10 public salaries are paid by the Rabun County public school system. In your opinion, are school salaries in Rabun excessive? Why or why not?
Ms. Lima.
We have to take into consideration that our schools are the biggest employer in our county also. So that's something that kind of skews this a bit comparatively to other communities, other counties. With that being said, I think that teachers on a teaching level, the basic teachers in your classroom, they're absolutely not being paid what they deserve. There's no way I would be able to go in there and do what they do on a day-to-day basis. I'm pretty sure that they're as close to a saint as you can get. But the excessive higher up salaries, they are high. They're high, and there's no getting around that. But again, that's why this is about all of us, board members, elected officials, and community getting together and listening to each other and saying, all right, what do y'all think? This is what we have, this is our budget, and really listening to our constituents and going, okay, we agree this is excessively high, And, okay, we'll scale down here, and having those meet and greet meetings with the community.
Mr. Smith.
I definitely agree that our teachers aren't paid well enough. The state has not provided really a raise until this year, since I think 2009, and I wish they could be paid more. There's always conversation about what the superintendent, some of the assistant superintendents are paid. My position on that is that they are the head of a corporation or a group that's the largest employer in the county, and we want the best people we can get for our kids. That's the way I look at it. And in order to achieve that, you have to pay them more. That's just what the salary structure is now in the state. The average tenure for a superintendent in the state of Georgia is 3 years. The last superintendent we had was here 13 years, I believe. And we want to make sure that we have the continuity in the school system. In order to do that, we believe that we need to compensate those individuals to do that. And we believe that's what makes a great system. Thank you.
This is a question for Mr. Smith. What else would you like voters to know about what differentiates you from your Republican competition?
I just, my big thing is I've always had a passion for public education. It gave me the opportunity to be where I'm at, and my sisters, neither one of my parents were able to graduate from high school because they grew up on a farm. And in order to graduate from high school, they would have had to board in town, and they just couldn't afford it. And the teachers that I had, that my sisters had, made a difference in our lives. And that's why I have the passion for public education that I do, because I know what it can do for individuals and how it can change their life. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Lima, what else would you like your voters to know about what differentiates you from your Democrat competition?
Obviously, I'm a Republican, so that's a pretty big one, Republican versus Democrat. But really, I want people to know that I am extremely passionate about this because of my vested interest in those schools, with my kiddos being there, because my tax dollars are going there, and I want to know what my money is going to and how much of my money is going to what. I also am very involved in those schools, as we already mentioned. I'm there every single day. I'm the president of PTO, a Girl Scout leader. This year, I'm a board member on Rhapsody and Raven, and we had the recipient was the Booster Club, so I got to work hand in hand with a lot of those folks on the Booster Club and seeing what they accomplished, Booster Club side of the school, and really everything I do in this community is for this community, and my priorities are always going to be God, my husband, my kids, and then my family and community. And everything that I do in my life, you can pretty much bet that it's going to follow those priorities to a T, just like that. So that's who I am. I'm very transparent in my private life because we've always been in public service in one way or the other. So that's just who we are as a family.
Last question. This would be for both of you, but we'll start off with Miss Lima. If you could ask your opponent one question, what would it be?
That's a good question. My one question. I think it would really be why. What is your motivation? Which, of course, Mr. Smith just laid that out. But really, what's the vested interest in the schools other than being a taxpayer? I think that's really what my biggest question would be. If I was a voter looking at the two of us, I'd want to know what your why is and who you are as a person. Those are what are important to me. I really think that public service is about putting the public back into it and people's ability to listen to their constituents, to be able to respond in a way that their constituents are wanting. So that would be my biggest question, really, to anyone running for any position.
Mr. Smith, your opportunity to answer the question.
Oh, I couldn't answer the question. I didn't know if I got to ask the question or answer the question. I think I answered the question, my passion. I've been a member of this community since 1982, and that's been 34 years, and I hope I'm here another 34 years. I don't know, but I've enjoyed it. I love the community. The amount of, I enjoy what I do. I coached rec ball for 20 years. I've been in Rotary. we attend the Methodist Church. I think you have to give back to your community. We have been so fortunate, my family has been so blessed to live in this community, and the benefits that we have received from living in this community are unbelievable. And I want to give back. And that's why I have the passion for public education, plus the other things, the benefits on a personal level, that education, I mean, I can still just about name all my teachers from first grade through high school. And they provided so much support to me and said, you can do this. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, likewise, if you could ask Ms. Lima one question, what would it be? As Amber alerts go off left and right.
I guess, the same
Amber
question
Alert.
probably, why, but she's answered that. I don't have any specific questions for her. I mean, I think she's, told us what she believes. That's great.
All right, we'll now move on to closing statements. This was selected at random with the drawing that y'all did beforehand. Mr. Smith.
I just want to say thank you for the support, again, that the community shows to our schools. If the schools are out selling something, doing something, I mean, with Rhapsody, that was a huge success. And, I've worked with a lot of school boards across the state and meeting with them, not with school boards, but the individual members. And the one thing that I have learned is those school systems that are successful are the ones that have the community support. And that's what we have here in Reagan County. The community supports our school system. And I just ask you to continue to support that. And as long as I'm on the board, I'm available. I'm out all the time. I see people. I talk to people. I don't know how many, sporting events and other events at the school we go to. I'd hate to add up the hours, but I enjoy it. It's a pleasure to be able to see these kids grow and succeed. Thank you.
Ms. Lima.
I just want to, again, say thank you so much to each and every one of you. I know life is busy, again, so thank you so much for coming out and taking part of this democratic process and really being involved in electing who you guys want to represent you. Because again, I can't reiterate that enough. That's what this is about, is putting the public back in public schools, putting the public back in public service. It should not be about us. It should be about how well we listen. And so that's one thing I really want to, I can't make that even more clear, any more clear than I want to really, but it's about you, it's about listening. So please, I'm accessible. If there's any time that you want to meet with me, talk with me, I encourage you to do so. And I thank you so much to those in the audience. I know some of you already have done that, reached out to me. So thank you so much for that. Thank you to the Tribune for hosting this debate. And I want to say thank you to Mr. Smith as well for being a great opponent. Thanks.
This concludes the Clayton Tribune's debate for Board of Education, Raven County Post 5. We'd like to thank our live audience members as well as those who are watching online. We'd also like to thank our panelists, Mr. Clark Bird, editor of the Clayton Tribune, and Ms. Cricket Werkheiser. We'd also like to thank Ms. Molly Lima and Mr. David Smith for joining us here tonight. In approximately 30 minutes, we will have our debate between sheriff candidates, James Blaylock as the Democratic nominee and Republican nominee, Chad Nichols. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take it down. Okay, cool.
I'm going to put up the next graphic and turn it back on.
Yeah.
It'll be
Oh,
mute.
yeah.